Welcome to the Leaner, Stronger, and Confident as Fuck podcast. Today's episode is a mini masterclass on how to train effectively to lose fat, build muscle, and finally see changes in your body shape. So I'm very excited to share this with you because this has been such a huge game changer in my own journey, and it's something that I work on in depth with my clients too. So, this is a glimpse of what we're going to be covering together. We're going to be focusing on the role strength training plays in creating a lean, toned body. We're going to cover the common workout mistakes that I see people making and that I was making myself as well, and how you can avoid them. We're going to talk about what your training actually needs to look like if you want to have body composition changes. And we're also going to talk about whether cardio should even be part of your plan if you're looking to create a tone defined physique. And then we're also going to talk about how you can start getting results without spending hours and hours and hours in the gym. So this is going to be for you if you are someone who is working out regularly, but you're not seeing the changes in your body shape. Or if you are smashing cardio classes, group fitness classes, and you're wondering why you're not getting more toned. This is also for you if you have been lifting weights in some capacity, but you know that you're not getting as much out of it as you could. And it's also for you if you're a complete beginner to lifting weights and you want to get it right from the start. If any of those resonated with you, you're definitely in the right place. So a quick intro for you about just who I am and where I've come from so that you know who you're learning from in this masterclass. So my name is Kathy. I've been training clients since 2014 as a personal trainer. And back then I was running my own outdoor fitness business, which was in Sydney. And I now coach women solely online. So I'm certified in a bunch of things from personal training to precision nutrition level 1, which I always find really hard to say, wellness coaching, yoga, functional training, boxing, pre and postnatal exercise, meditation, hypnosis, and a bunch of other things as well. But my goal is always to try and make nutrition and training simple and easy for other people to apply, which is why I absolutely love sharing education. And I always have a health first approach as well to improving body composition, because I did a bunch of things in my past that were definitely not the healthiest way to approach it. And I've done a complete 180 on how I approach things myself. And certainly that's the thing that I bring up with my clients as well. Now, I have actually been someone who has loved exercise ever since I was like 16. It's really kind of my earliest memories of it. And so you might call it lucky that, I've always loved working out in some capacity. But despite my love of it, it took me years to figure out how to build the lean toned physique that I wanted. And a big reason for this is that I didn't realize for a long time that there was a big difference between exercising and training. And so in my 20s, I was doing loads and loads of running. And I actually did a full marathon when I was 32. And since then, I haven't really done a lot of running actually. But in that time of my life, I was absolutely mad into running. And if you are watching this on Spotify or on YouTube, which is where it's going to be later, if you're joining this on Instagram, then you'll see a slide there of when I finished the Sydney Marathon. And in my 30s, I then kind of moved on to group fitness classes. And like I said, I ran my own outdoor fitness business in Sydney, which was something that I absolutely love to do. And you can see on the screen here a big picture of, all of us together. And it was just such an amazing community that I ran. Later then, I became a coach at F45. And I was both training there as a client myself, and I was coaching in F45 for years as well. And so the kind of exercise that I was doing at the time was very much focused around group fitness, around cardio, around high intensity type training. And so I was working really, really hard in the workouts that I was doing, but my body composition wasn't really changing in the way that I was hoping it would. But what changed everything for me in my late 30s, and I'm now 42, just to give you some context, was learning how to train effectively. I shifted my focus from cardio, from all the high intensity stuff that I was doing, to structured strength training. I started really applying progressive overload, really learning how to track my lifts, how to put all of the things into practice that I am going to be sharing with you in this masterclass. Things like sticking with a program long enough to actually see progress. And suddenly I ended up seeing much better results while actually working out less. Because when I was doing all of the group fitness type stuff, I was working out like 4 to 6 times a week. And sometimes like 7 days a week, I was exercising. And then when I actually switched to training just 3 times a week in a structured strength training program and just walking alongside it, my body started to change in a way that it never had before. And so, what I encourage you to consider, if you are working out, but you are not seeing progress in the way that you think that you should when it comes to getting leaner and more toned and defined, you are very much likely exercising instead of training, just like I was, and just like so many of my clients have been as well before they start working with me. So let's have a little chat about what exercising versus training actually looks like. So exercising typically looks like doing random workouts. They change, very, very regularly, week to week, focusing on variety, focusing on fun, focusing your workouts on burning calories or judging a good workout by like how much you're sweating and whether, you've been feeling the burn. Exercising also tends to look like having no progression or not tracking anything that you're doing as well. And the nutrition is usually not aligned with the exercise that you're doing. Training, on the other hand, looks very different. It looks like following a structured plan aligned to your goal. And if the training goal is to change your body composition, training also should look like applying progressive overload week to week. Because, of course, you can do different types of training. You could train for a marathon or you could train for a high rocks. But training to change your body composition needs to have the element of progressive overload, which we're going to talk about in a moment. It needs to also have consistency with the same exercises and the right intensity to elicit the change that you need. And also, it needs your recovery and nutrition supporting the goal. That is what training to change your body composition looks like as an overview. And look, there is absolutely nothing wrong with exercising at all. It is amazing for your health, of course. It is great for a million different things: connection, community, fun, just like I said, really amazing for your health. But if you want to change your body shape, exercising alone is not going to cut it. You need to train with intention for the result that you want. And so if it is safe for you to do so, I'd invite you just a moment for you to just close your eyes and just picture your most confident body in your mind. Think about, what are you wearing? How are you moving in your most confident body? Think about how strong you feel and how your clothes fit and how easy it is to just like pull something out of the wardrobe and feel amazing in it. And what I invite you to consider is that the image that hopefully came to your mind wouldn't have been attached to a number on the scale. It was instead a look and a feeling, and really how you're kind of carrying yourself in your body. And I just encourage you to keep that in your mind as we go through what we are doing in this training together. Because scale obsession stops so many women from transforming their bodies, because we focus instead on always trying to be our smallest self, our skinniest self, rather than focusing instead on building our most confident body. And so the most common goal that I hear from women in my community and those that come to me for coaching is this: I want to lose fat, tone up, and feel confident in my own skin. And so maybe you can relate to some or maybe all of that. And so I just want to cover what toned actually means, because it is one of the most misunderstood terms in the fitness industry. To look toned, we need two things. We need, first of all, enough of a foundation of muscle on our body to create shape and definition. And secondly, we need to have a low enough body fat percentage to actually be able to see that muscle. So when people talk about trying to tone a muscle, that's not actually something that we can do. We can either make our muscles bigger or smaller. That's it. We cannot change their shape. So if we want to actually look toned, to see the definition, we first of all need to build the muscle that creates it by making our muscles bigger. And if we want to see that muscle and see that definition, we just need to then focus on reducing our body fat percentage enough to be able to see it. Now, nutrition is where the body fats side of things comes in. Nutrition is how you reveal your muscles, but training is how you build the muscles in the first place. And I do think we're getting away from this fear of kind of looking bulky by building muscle more and more, which is amazing that the general kind of like consensus is starting to shift from that. But I also know that some people are still concerned about that, and that some people do still feel bulky, maybe when they do start to grow some muscle. And so all I wanted to kind of share about that is that if we ever feel bulky from gaining muscle, it is 99.9% down, 9% likely, I should say, down to the fact that we just need to focus on going through a fat loss phase to reduce the body fat that sits on top of the muscle to then be able to reveal the muscle underneath. So it's not that muscle makes us feel bulky. It's just that we need to focus on the other side of that process of getting toned. So a lot of people make this mistake when it comes to their training. They focus just on calories burned. And this, I think, is partly due to this whole message that so many of us grew up with, that just eat less, move more is the way to lose weight, to be able to change our body. And of course, eat less, move more has an element of truth to it in what we need to do to be able to change our physique. But it tends to kind of bypass some of the most essential elements that come from being able to actually create a lean, toned body. And the whole eat less, move more message on its own tends to lead to so many people, myself included in the past, to just smashing cardio classes or thinking that if we are burning the most calories, then that's magically going to create that toned physique, that it's going to mean that we've had a good workout. And it might be a good sign of like a good exercise class that, is helping us get healthier and more fit, but it's not a sign of you being able to build more muscle. So a high calorie burn workout is not the same as a body transformation workout. And so in order to understand what actually goes into the body transformation workout, how to actually lift weights effectively to create that toned look, we need to dive into a little bit more about how we actually burn energy throughout the day. And so there are 4 main ways that we burn energy. This is what's called our total daily energy expenditure, TDEE. The first is what's called our basal metabolic rate, BMR. And this is the biggest chunk of our daily energy burn. It's around 70% of our daily calories. And this is just the energy that your body uses just to stay alive. So doing things like breathing, pumping your blood around your body, your brain function, your organs functioning, digestion, all of those kind of things. And so even if you're lying in bed all day, you are still going to burn the most amount of your calories by keeping your body functioning. Now, how much muscle you have on your body plays an element into that BMR. And muscle is more metabolically active on our body than fat, for example. So the more muscle we have, the higher our BMR and the more calories we burn at rest. This is one reason why building muscle is one of the most effective ways to naturally increase your daily calorie burn. Then the next part of how we burn energy is what's called our NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. But all this means is just the movement that we do outside of our workout. So me gesturing right now comes under that NEAT category. Walking around, cleaning, fidgeting, unloading the dishwasher, gardening, dancing, carrying shopping, all of that comes into that part of our energy expenditure. And this is actually the second largest contributor to your daily calorie burn. And this can vary so much for different people based on how active they are in their day-to-day. And so staying active outside your workouts is such a huge part in making sure that your metabolism is strong and that you're able to burn more energy throughout the day. Then we also have what's called our thermic effect of food, TEF. This can account for around 10 to 15% of your daily energy burn. This is the energy that your body uses to digest and process food. And so having a high protein diet actually increases how much energy we're burning through this side of the equation, because protein takes more energy to break down in our bodies than fats and carbs. One of the reasons why having a high protein diet helps you have a stronger metabolism, and it's also having enough protein, a key element in being able to grow muscle, because it is the building blocks of our muscle. Then we have the smallest part of our daily energy burn, which is what's called our EAT, exercise activity thermogenesis. And so any of the exercise you do actually only accounts for about 5 to 10% of your daily energy burn. It is the smallest piece of this pie. And yet, so many people, when they are looking to change their body, put all of their effort into the hour or whatever it is that they do in their exercise each day or a few times a week, and think that that is going to be the thing that is going to transform their body. And it plays a small part, and it is still important. But we actually want to think about using our workouts rather than focusing on them as being for calorie burn, focusing on them instead as building and retaining muscle, because that is actually then going to play into all of the rest of that equation that we've just started to speak about. So it's going to mean that you're going to have a higher BMR. You're also going to burn more energy throughout the day by just going around your general activity because you've got more muscle on your body. Making sure we're also eating a high protein diet is going to be helpful, as well as eating mostly whole foods. And then, of course, making sure our workouts count as well in terms of building muscle. And of course, you get the added benefit of the calorie burn. But muscle is usually the missing piece to creating the body that you want. So having more muscle on your body is going to increase your metabolism. It's going to be the thing that gives your body shape. It's going to be the thing that makes you look tighter and more defined. It's going to help you burn more calories during the day. And it's going to make fat loss more effective for you. And it's going to also help you age well. And it's so important for your health. And you can stay exactly the same weight on the scales, but look completely different when you have more muscle. And this is because muscle is denser than fat, so it takes up less space on your body. A pound of muscle weighs exactly the same as a pound of fat, but it will take up much less space. And so that's why just eat less, move more is just too simple when it comes to focusing on body transformation. Because we want to focus not just on burning calories, but on actually building our muscle. And this is so important, especially as we age, because from our 30s onwards, we're actually at risk of losing as much as 3 to 8% of our muscle mass every single decade just through the aging process, unless we are doing something to keep it. This is what's called sarcopenia. And it is a huge reason why so many people find themselves putting on weight mysteriously as they age and thinking, I don't understand where this has come from because I've not changed anything. Sometimes it is down to them being more sedentary. It is often, though, down to the fact that they are losing muscle because they are not doing enough to actually keep it. And lifting weights is a huge factor that's going to help you keep the muscle that you have on your body and then ultimately build more too. So whether your goal is to lose fat or to gain muscle and look toned, your workouts need to focus on building and retaining muscle by lifting weights. So many people think that when they go into like a fat loss phase, they need to suddenly, stop lifting weights in the way that they might have been before and just start doing loads of cardio instead. And while you might want to use cardio to supplement some of your weight training, we're going to get onto that in a moment. In fat loss, we have to hold on to our muscle mass as we lose weight. Because if we're not making sure we are lifting weights and eating enough protein, then we actually run the risk of losing our muscle as we lose weight and not losing fat, which is the opposite of what we want if we want a better body composition. So in fat loss, or whether you are looking to build muscle, we want to keep our training the same with that intention to build and retain muscle. And strength training is not just about building muscle, although it is amazing for that. Has so many benefits, which I've got listed on my slides here, but I'll just read a couple of them for those of you who might just be listening to this. So things like it can improve, obviously, your strength, keep your bones strong, manage your blood sugar. It can help protect you from risk of falls as you get older, which keeps your quality of life in a better place, improves your metabolism, your body composition, your balance, your posture, can help you avoid joint pain, can just generally make you feel more confident. It's amazing for building discipline and resilience in the practice of it. And it can also help prevent age-related muscle loss. But here's the thing. Just because your workout has dumbbells in it, it doesn't mean that you're doing enough to promote muscle growth or to retain muscle in a deficit. And this is something that tripped me up for so long when I was doing group fitness classes and I was lifting weights and I was, doing strength classes. And I was like, well, why are things still not really changing? And that, again, is the difference between exercising and training effectively. So we're just going to cover now the 7 key things that we want to have in place if we want to focus on training effectively to build and retain muscle. The first is that we, of course, want to lift weights. So making sure that we're doing that is definitely the first thing that we need to focus on. But how much do we need to actually do it? Well, just 3 to 4 times a week is absolutely plenty. And if you are doing a 3 times a week split, then doing full body 3 times a week is a great option. If you are doing 4 times a week, then focusing on 2 upper and 2 lower is a great way to split up your training. Ultimately, the most important thing for you to focus on is which one are you going to be able to be consistent with for long enough, because consistency is a huge factor in all results when it comes to body transformation. And just to give you some context, I have been training full body 3 times a week for the last about 2.5 years now. And I've been able to see amazing progress in my own physique development from training, lifting weights just 3 times a week. So that's 3 hours a week in total that I was doing. And one of the reasons it's worked so well for me is because I've been traveling around so much in the last couple of years. I've been back and forth between England and Australia, which is where I was living between, done some nomading trips around Europe. And if I was training more than 3 times a week, I would have missed quite a few sessions, I'm pretty sure, with just the amount that I've been traveling. But because I was just doing those 3 sessions a week, I barely missed a session in the entire last 2.5 years. Maybe I missed probably less than 5 in the last 2.5 years. And that consistency with all the other elements that I'm just about to mention has been a huge factor in why I've been able to get such good results. And I've only just switched now to a 4-day-a-week split because I'm in the same country for a prolonged period of time now. And also I'm trying to take my training to another level. So I've upped the volume slightly. But 3 or 4 times a week, which one can you genuinely be most consistent with for the longest period of time? Then the next element that we need to focus on is progressive overload. I'm sure you have heard this term thrown around multiple places, but it is really important for you to be able to train effectively, to know that you are progressing your workouts, because your muscles are not going to grow if you just do the same thing every single week. If you pick up the same weights, even if you are doing the same workout week to week, if you are not challenging yourself to increase the load that you're putting on your body over time, then your muscles have no reason to grow, to come back stronger. So progressive overload can be achieved in multiple different ways. It can come from lifting heavier. It can come from doing more reps at the same weight. You could add on an extra set, so you're increasing the volume. It can come from slowing down the tempo, the speed at which you are doing the same weight and the same number of reps. So you're focusing on increasing what's called time under tension. It can also be achieved by improving your form with your weights workouts. That is one of the most underestimated forms of progressive overload there is. And so we want to focus on applying all of these at some point across our journey to be able to continue to progress. And it's the biggest reason why just doing random workouts or classes that change too often, if you're going to a gym-based strength class, switching things up too often doesn't deliver physique results, because we need to be able to progress them in a structured way so that we can actually give our muscles a reason to adapt and come back stronger. We need to, in order to be able to give ourselves a chance to apply that progressive overload, we want to focus on repeating the same workouts for 4 to 6 weeks at least. And so this can look like you doing, the same 3 workouts for 4 to 6 weeks straight. And the reason that this is so important is because strength training is a skill. And so we want to focus on mastering the key movements, things like a squat pattern, a hinge pattern, like a deadlift, a push pattern, a pull pattern, things like lunges or single leg work. They're all skills. And so if we're just changing things around too often, we're not getting a chance to make sure that we're actually using the right muscles as we're performing these movements, focusing on that form, on that tempo, making sure that we're doing it safely and allowing ourselves to get stronger in a way that's actually based in a solid foundation. And so when we change workouts each week, you're pretty much always just focusing on getting used to what that workout is, and then you've just kind of got used to it maybe by the end of the workout, and then the next week you're doing something different. Instead, we want to have a structure to it so that we can track our workouts, which I'm going to get onto in a moment, but also so that we can really master those skills and put into practice all those elements of progression that I've just mentioned. Because if we're not giving ourselves a chance to repeat them, then how do you know what weight you did last week so that you can make sure you're progressing it this week, and so forth? Then the next element that we want to focus on is to train close to failure. And this is the biggest thing that I see so many people missing when they've got that progression piece down pat. They might be thinking, okay, well, last week, maybe I did a squat with, I'm just going to make up some numbers, 50 kilos. And so this week I did a squat with 52.5 kilos. And so I progressed that exercise. And while that's technically true, if in that exercise, lifting that heavier weight, we weren't training close to failure, then we're still not going to be doing enough to elicit the change that we need in our body. Because it's been shown that it's those last few reps when we're really close to failure, really kind of within the last 1 to 3 reps, that is where the most adaptation happens in our body. And so many people, myself included in the past, they just spend so long not even getting close to failure, and therefore not seeing the adaptation that they want. It took me quite a long time to realize this several years ago. I was like, oh, I'm progressing, I'm tracking my workouts, this is great, I've definitely got a bit stronger, but I wasn't getting that intensity right. So there's a couple of different ways that you can think about it. First of all, I encourage you to experience what it's like to take an exercise that is safe for you to do so to failure. Something like a bicep curl, or a lateral raise, or a leg extension on a machine. Something that if you drop the weight, it would be okay, like you wouldn't injure yourself, because we want to make sure you are staying safe at all times. And experience what it's like. Pick that weight that you would normally go with that exercise and go as far as you can until you literally cannot lift your arms up anymore, or your legs if you're doing the leg extension. Just don't practice this with something like a deadlift or a squat. That's not the exercise to practice this on. Please don't do that. But practice it with something that's safe to do so, like those ones that I just gave you the example of, so that you can feel what it feels like to get to that point where you literally cannot do another rep. And then once you've experienced that in your body, you can use that as a guide of how close we want to get to it in the other exercises. And so we want to be thinking about that 8 out of 10 intensity for the majority of our exercises. And so think about if let's say you're doing working in an 8 to 12 rep range, and you get towards 12 reps. And if you cannot do another 1 to 2 reps more than that without your form completely just going to pot, then that is about the intensity that you want to train in with every single set. So experiment with that in your workouts this week with an exercise that's safe for you to do so, and use that to then be able to find that intensity correctly in your other sets in all exercises. Then the 5th thing that we want to think about to train effectively is to track our workout so that we are actually monitoring our progress. It is so easy to just forget what you did last week. I can't even remember what I did this morning in my workout. And so I have it written down so that I don't need to use my brain power to try and remember that each week as well. So write down the weights that you did, the reps that you did for each set, so that you can use that as a guide to focus on improving it next time, so that you can also see that you are progressing. And so, of course, you can do this in an app, you can do it in your notes app section of your phone, you can do it in a spreadsheet, and tracking your workouts. And so making sure that you set yourself a target across the training phase, making sure that the next time you go to that same workout, you're like, right, I'm going to see if I can increase to that weight, or I'm going to see if I can do this amount of reps, is a really good way of keeping yourself accountable to your progression. And then the 6th thing to focus on is to prioritize rest and recovery. And this is something that when so many of us have been used to just exercising in the past, where it's all about, smash yourself with cardio classes and try and get as sweaty as possible, burn as many calories as possible, and just kind of feel like flogged by the end of the workout. When you come from a history of those kind of workouts, which was my past for sure, it can feel strange to actually think maybe training less is actually going to give me better results. Like I said, I went from working out in those high intensity classes 4 to 6 times a week, sometimes 7 times a week, to actually just working out 3 times a week for an hour lifting weights and then just walking, and I got better results. And it completely boggled my brain for quite a long period of time. But it's because we want to have that adequate rest and recovery. We want to train effectively in the time that we're working out and using those pointers that I've just given you, but we want to make sure we are resting too. And so that means the rest in between your sets as well, making sure that you're fully recovered and ready to go for your next set so that you are able to push each set effectively to train at the right intensity in every single set, but also so that you are taking the rest between your sessions, because it's in between your sessions that your muscles are also going to get that chance to recover and to grow. And recovery is not just days where you're not in the gym, and it's not just the time in between your sets. It's also focusing on things like stress management and sleep quality, which is going to play a big part in you being able to build muscle more effectively as well. Really kind of prioritizing that as just as important as your workouts is so crucial if you want to actually change your physique. And it's not, like I said, just a day off from the gym. Being active still on your day off, going for a walk or doing some maybe steady state cardio or something, but making sure that we are taking that time in between our weight sessions to prioritize that so that you can make each session more effective too. More is not just better when it comes to lifting weights. Better is better by applying the right technique and intensity and progression rather than just adding on more workouts. And then the 7th thing for how to train effectively is actually about nutrition. And so we're not going to go into depth into nutrition today, but essentially, if we want to make sure we are gaining muscle, we want to make sure we're getting adequate protein, we want to focus on not always dieting so that we're spending time at maintenance at least, giving ourselves the energy that our body also would want to be able to help us grow muscle. So we want to approach our nutrition in phases, having some periods in fat loss. And again, making sure we are strength training effectively and getting enough protein is really, really crucial to be able to lose fat, not just weight. We want to spend some time in fat loss. We want to spend some time in maintenance, possibly spending some time really building muscle at the kind of just into a slight surplus. And making sure that we are phasing our nutrition in that way is going to help us transform our body. If you think about what I said at the beginning about what we want to do to look toned, we want to build muscle, then we want to reveal the muscle by losing body fat. So we want to focus on those 2 phases, at least in our own journey. And they are best done by focusing on them in separate phases. So those are the 7 things we want to really focus on to train effectively. I'll just summarize them here. Lift weights 3 to 4 times a week, making sure, number 2, that we are focusing on progressive overload. Number 3, repeating the same workouts for 4 to 6 weeks at least, but you could definitely do it for much longer. And number 4, training close to failure with every single set. Number 5, tracking our workouts so that we know that we're progressing. Number 6, making sure that we're prioritizing our rest and recovery. And number 7, aligning our nutrition with our goal. So you might be wondering, what about cardio then? Does that play a part? Do I need to do any? And cardio is, of course, good for our health. Now, strength training is also good for our health, for our heart health and things like that too. But cardio is good for our health in a slightly different way. So it's completely fine to have it as part of your routine if your goal is to transform your body, and it is good to still include some for your health. But the main tool for fat loss and for building muscle in terms of our workouts is going to be strength training. So we want to have that as kind of like the main focus for our workouts. And then think of cardio more as a condiment, especially if we are focusing on a maintenance or building phase. Excessive cardio can really hinder your progress if your plan is to build muscle, and it can leave you too fatigued and not allowing the recovery piece to come in as much when it comes to, if it's going to impact your strength training in that way. So when you're in fat loss, you might want to increase cardio a little bit to be able to increase your energy expenditure at some point along the way. But for that, with all of my clients, we generally stick to steady state cardio. So kind of anything where you're keeping your heart rate kind of under like 140 beats per minute as a very rough guide, so that we are not taking away too much from like recovery and making sure that we're not impacting our strength training too much. But I've got many clients who have achieved great results in fat loss with just like 1 to 2 cardio sessions added, or sometimes even none. And they've just focused on strength training and walking. And so for most clients, again, depending on, the routine that they have, how much time they have, we always prioritize strength training 3 or 4 times a week, depending on what they can focus on being consistent with for the longest period of time. That's always the most important factor. And then we might add in some cardio for general health, but I tend to keep it to about 25% of the total training time when we are in any phase other than fat loss. And then depending on the person, depending on their routine, depending on their results, and depending on the calorie amount that we need to have them on for fat loss, we might add in more cardio in that phase. But body transformation, the primary things are going to be strength training and making sure you're walking enough. If you think about that total daily energy expenditure that we spoke about earlier, those are the 2 biggest factors in how you are going to be burning energy: having enough muscle and making sure that we are moving enough throughout the day. And unfortunately, most group classes just don't cut it when it comes to changing your body. And I say this as someone who ran an outdoor group fitness business for 3 years. If you're watching this with the slides, you'll see another picture of my group there. And this also comes from someone who then coached at F45 for years and who trained in those kind of things for myself for years. Even if they have classes called strength, most of them do not cut it. A few do before people come back at me with some, but I'm not knocking group fitness classes either. I will never do that because I love them for the time of my life that I had in them. They are fun. They improve your fitness. They're great for community. They're great for just turning up and just being told what to do and all of those things. Great for your general overall health. But if your goal is specifically to lose fat and to gain muscle, then group fitness classes mostly do not allow for the consistent enough progression that needs to happen to be able to do that, to be able to repeat the same lifts and track them properly week to week and for long enough to be able to really see the improvements that you want, and to really focus on being more strategic with it. And certainly something that I've seen in my own journey is the more you get towards your ultimate physique, the more dialed in you have to be and the more precise you need to be with your nutrition and your training. And because you're not the one programming your group fitness class, then it's hard to have the level of control that is needed often to really take your physique to the next level. But it is why a lot of people think, they go to group fitness classes, and I experienced this myself. They see changes at the beginning and then they start to plateau. And it's because your body has kind of used the amount of adaptation that it was going to get from that different kind of program that you switched to. And then after a while, your body has adapted and it needs to have more structure and progression and intensity to be able to change further. That's why so many group fitness classes are effective at the beginning for so many people, and then their results start to go like that. That's the time that it's best to switch to a structured strength training program in the gym or at home, but really focusing on the elements that we've covered here. And then walking is the other thing that is going to just be such a positive addition to, of course, your health, but also your body transformation journey, because it's going to play into that part of your daily calorie burn that we spoke about, your NEAT. And making sure you are staying active enough throughout the day is going to be super helpful for maintaining your weight. It's going to help you be able to keep your maintenance calories at a decent level without impacting your recovery too much from strength training, crucially. And the same thing in terms of being able to drive more energy expenditure in fat loss without impacting your recovery and your hunger too much. And look, there is no magic number exactly to aim for when it comes to steps. It is very individual on what you're doing right now. But roughly about 8,000 to 10,000 steps a day is where many studies have kind of shown that that's where you get the most positive benefits from being active enough throughout the day when you're into that range. And then for many people, you might need to drive it higher than that when you're in fat loss or when you're looking to progress things further in your physique journey. But it's all going to come down to exactly what you're doing now. If you came to me and you were like, I'm doing 6,000 steps a day, I wouldn't say, well, suddenly you've just got to go and do 10,000. You want to increase it gradually by about 1,000 steps as a goal to start off with, and then establish that as a foundation and then increase from there. Everything in everyone's body transformation journey is going to be best worked out according to where your starting point is right now, rather than just some blanket numbers for every single person. And then the last thing, patience and consistency. I was joking with people in my community the other day about how if I could create a supplement, it would be patience for everyone, because we all want results. Of course, we want results as fast as possible. Totally understand that. Who wouldn't? But this is the thing, muscle takes a while to grow. It's not, fat loss can be faster, muscle growth is a slow process. And that's not to say that once you dial in your training, you can't see your body start to change within a few weeks. But if you want to really significantly increase your muscle mass, it is something that does take months and ultimately years of working towards it. There is always another level that you can take things to, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to also see results while dialing these things in the first few weeks. For example, I've just started dialing my training in even more to take things to another level with my physique. And I have been noticing the difference in my body in the last month alone. So just to start to wrap things up, your workouts are such a small part of your week, really just about 2% of your week if you're just training 3 times a week, like 1 hour in those sessions, for example. But don't make the mistake in thinking that by the fact that they're a small percentage of the week that they don't matter. That's the opposite of what I'm saying. Because they're such a small part of your week, you need to make them count even more. If you're just turning up and you're just doing a random like exercises, whatever you feel like in the gym that day, or a random class, then you're not making the most of that time if your goal is to change your body composition. And instead, you can make that 1 hour be so much more effective if you apply those 7 steps that I shared with you in this masterclass. And I wanted to really end this on a mindset shift, which I did briefly touch on at the beginning of this. Instead of focusing so much on trying to shrink your body, which I certainly did for years and years and years and years. I was always just trying to eat less and like smash myself with cardio and just try and be like the skinniest version of myself. If you switch from that focus to instead focusing on trying to build your body, not only is this going to change the way that you work out, it's going to change the results that you get. The biggest thing that I ever did for my physique transformation was learn how to train effectively and stop dieting all the time. I spent longer at maintenance and I focused on learning how to train properly. And I was able to build muscle to create the lean tone physique that I'd been chasing all along. So we don't just need more workouts. We need instead to train more effectively in the time that we have. We need to, for many people, it's actually work out less, but work out better. Lift weights effectively, get stronger, progress week to week, fuel your body, stop endlessly dieting, and focus on intentional rest and recovery. This is how you will create your leanest, strongest, and most confident body. And if you're listening to this thinking, yes, dialing in my training is definitely going to be the thing that is going to help me take my results to the next level, but you're not quite sure where to start or how to structure it yourself, don't worry, I have got something for you. I've created a free 6-week strength training program called Stronger in 6. And it is going to give you 3 full body weights workouts to do a week, and you can put it into practice for 6 weeks. It's got a spreadsheet for you to be able to track your progress, the number of sets and the number of reps to aim for, as well as some education on how to start applying it and lifting with intention. So to access this, you can just check out the link in the show notes below, or you can send me a DM on Instagram, the number 6 at Kathy Morton Fitness, and I will send it straight to you. It's completely free, and it's a great way to get started on building strength, building confidence, and to really take your results and building a leaner, more toned physique to the next level. Enjoy, and I will look forward to speaking to you next time. Bye.